Hi guys, so I wanted to show you how I went about changing the wrench, the off contact on an older Vastex that did not have the wrenchless off contact knobs on it already. You can buy a kit for making it wrenchless, and this is the head with the old setup. There's no wrenchless knobs on the back here. You have your bolts and no knobs here. So every time you want to change the off contact, you gotta take a wrench and undo these bolts a little bit to change your off contact. On the newer version, which is this, you can see that it adds the button lever knobs and some carriage bolts. And this plate here, called the swivel plate, is going to be changed. So on this platen over here is all the parts for the kit. So this is called the swivel plate, and it's part of the kit. The only difference between this plate and the swivel plate that's already on your press will be these holes do not have threads in them. So if you wanted to save a little bit of money, you could take a drill press and drill out your threads. But I just went ahead and bought the swivel plate. So that's how I like to do it. The kit comes with that. It comes with your two lever knobs, some carriage bolts, the steel spacers for behind this plate, and then you'll need an Allen wrench and a 9/16 open end wrench. Okay, so back to the one I'm going to be working on. The first thing I did was I would lower this down, leave your locking levers here so your setup doesn't move as you would usually when you're setting it all up. Then I take the left and the right pitch knobs out. So nothing else is going to move because you still have it locked down. Just pull these out like so. I'll grab this one here like this. Set that aside. Same here. Set that aside. Then I like to take this, this is your locking thumb screw for your tilt. That's what you usually lock it in with. So I pull that out, all the way out. Like this. Then you can go ahead right away and put it into your new swivel plate in the back. Got to line it up good so it doesn't strip or anything. And just put it through so it just starts coming out the back, and that's enough. Now you can set that aside. Then before I do anything else, I would now take off the bolts that you would usually loosen for your off contact. So loosen those up. Okay, should be able to spin them by my hand now. Take those all the way out. Set those aside. You won't be using those two bolts anymore. Okay? So now you can take the head and just set it down there. Okay? Now you can take off your tilt knob. Just get that all the way out. Okay, set that aside. And now what you want to do is take your Allen wrench. You can flip this up a little now, get this out of your way if you have to, and get your Allen wrench into these two bolts on the side of your swivel plate. These are the two bolts you want to get out. So you got to crack that loose, undo that a little bit, get the other one going. Crack it loose, then get those bolts all the way out. like this. Okay, set those aside. Get this one loose again. Now in my press, I've noticed the Allen bolt on the right side had no little washer, and all the ones on the left side did. Don't know why, but it did. So now you take this swivel bracket off and you won't need this anymore. This is white lithium grease that I put on earlier. I'm going to just set this aside for now. There. And then get that off your hands real quick. Now what you want to do is take your new swivel plate, okay, and wiggle it on here. It's going to be a little tight, so you kind of wiggle it in there until you can line up those bolts. Okay, put the same bolt in the same hole that it came out of. Make sure it goes in nicely so you're not stripping anything. Same over here. Looks like I nicked my finger. Okay, now spin them back in, and it seems to me that they stop, and you can tighten them up and you'll still be able to move your swivel plate, so you can snug them up good. I'll let that one go for a little bit. Get this one in here. Tighten this all the way up. Snug. Get that key out of there. Sometimes these Allen keys are kind of sticky. So tighten it up a little bit. You can see it still swivels. Now what I did was I took some white lithium grease and just applied a little bit to the face of this swivel plate, because that's where your head is going to swivel on, or slide on I should say. You don't need much, and when you mount it, when you mount the head back on, it's going to smoosh that around enough. So now I took my tilt knob and I put that back in, and that's just so it doesn't keep flopping around while I'm working on it. So I put it in kind of all the way. I'm not adjusting for anything right now. So just screw it down. Doesn't have to be tight or anything, but this kind of just holds it in place. You'll have to adjust it once you're using the press, of course. Now I lower this back down. Okay, and the next thing I need to do is take my two carriage bolts. Now these are going to go through the holes where your old regular bolts were. Okay, since we did not move the left and right pitch or off contact knobs at all, we set those on top of the new plate. Slide your carriage bolts in. Make sure you got to line them up in that little hole in the swivel plate. So once you get both of those in there, lined up like so. Okay, both in there, and it's kind of just hanging there now. So you want to take your hand, keep it pushed back so it doesn't flop around, keep your carriage bolt nice. Then you're going to want to take your steel spacer, stick it over the carriage bolt, and then this part's a little tricky. You want to take your button lever, and you kind of have to get it started. Without two people, it's a little tricky. You're going to want to thread it a little bit so that it starts, and then I'll show you how you can make the rest easier. So put it all the way to the one side, and try your best to get it to its thread. Go all the way down. If you're lucky, you can then put your finger on the threaded area of this lever. It has little knurls in it, I should say. Then you can pull this out, rotate it, and then keeping your finger on there so it don't move. You keep doing that for a while, and you will be tightening up this lever, because you won't really be able to push the button and do all this with one hand. So you want to do it like this. Now once you get one side, it holds everything in place, which is cool. Now the other side's a little bit easier. So I want to put on my spacer. Then I want to, same way, get it started at first, which is kind of the tricky part, but once you do, it can be a little nerve-wracking a little bit, because you don't want to cross-thread it. I think I got it that time. You can do this same technique a couple of times, but then you can push in the red button, and now you can just turn the whole thing with that knurled part on the front. And you're kind of pulling out. Instead of pushing the button, you're pulling the lever out. And it'll get you to where you want to be much quicker. Okay? Now that you got that far, you got to remember your left pitch and right pitch knobs, and you put them back in the same holes they came out of. Screw it in right to where it was before, since you didn't undo your lockdown levers. You should be able to turn those all the way back into where they were. And let's see where this one goes. All right, that's it. I now have a wrenchless head. It's as simple as that. Anyone can do it. If I remember right, it was about, let's see, about 50 or 60 bucks a head to have all those parts. And that's it.